Hello, James Morrow here, or rather, his reflection. I'm about to interview myself on the subject of my latest work of fiction, a short novel from Tachyon Books called The Madonna and the Starship. Jim, welcome to the program. Well, it's nice to be here, Jim. And yes, the book is called The Madonna and the Starship, not The Starship and the Madonna, even though that's how the title appeared in the Mirror. You know, Jim, I thought it was one of your better efforts. Well, a little too whimsical for my tastes, but it gradually won me over. Just as Hiroshima towards shambling towards Hiroshima was filled with affection for 1940s horror movies, such as The Wolfman, The Madonna and the Starship takes us into the world of early 1950s science fiction television. You know, in 1953, everybody was watching TV on cathode ray receivers, like this one. It's a General Electric set built in 1948. Most of the programming was live, which of course was a recipe for bloopers and flubs and assorted disasters. Every week, my hero, Kurt Jastrow, he sits down at his portable typewriter and he pecks out yet another installment of Brock Barton and his Rocket Rangers, a children's space opera along the lines of actual 1950s shows like Space Patrol. You and I were barely sentient in 1953, but we still vividly remember Patrol Space. Space Patrol! Brock Barton and his Rocket Rangers is pretty much what you'd expect. A team of explorers tooling around the solar system in their needle-nosed rocket ship. The crew includes a bunch of white male astronauts with ray guns, a lovely female co-pilot, a talking ape, and of course, a robot. But a special feature of Brock Barton is that at the end of every 20-minute cliffhanging episode, we get a 10-minute segment called Uncle Wonder's Attic. Kurt Jastrow himself plays Uncle Wonder, an eccentric scientist who performs an experiment keyed to whatever chapter we just saw. I recall that in the opening pages of The Madonna and the Starship, Uncle Wonder makes a jet engine out of an empty ice cream tub, and a couple of straws, and a bowl full of water, and an aluminum pie plate, and the fuel, some dry ice. Never handle dry ice with your bare hands. Whoosh! Look at that. One day, during a live broadcast of Uncle Wonder's Attic, Kurt is visited by two devoted fans of the show, a pair of bipedal invertebrates from planet Qualimoso. That's not an invertebrate. It's obviously got a spinal cord. In fact, it's nothing but a spinal cord and a brain. I don't do hard science fiction. These invertebrates are hyper-rationalists, and they've come to present Kurt with the coveted Zornengorb Prize, given annually to media celebrities who keep the light of reason burning throughout the Milky Way. The Zornengorb Prize looks a little like a Nebula Award. But then the plot thickens. as they're leaving the NBC studios, the two aliens stumble into a rehearsal for an upcoming installment of a popular religious series called Not by Bread Alone. The episode is titled Sitting Shiva for Jesus, and it takes place 2 days after the crucifixion, when the resurrected Jesus visits his family at the home of Lazarus near Jerusalem. Naturally, the aliens are horrified. According to their worldview, the audience for Not by Bread Alone must constitute, quote, a hive of irrationalist vermin. So the aliens decide that come Sunday morning, when Sitting Shiva for Jesus is broadcast into 2 million homes, they'll exterminate all the viewers by retrofitting a laser beam onto the NBC carrier wave, thereby turning the scanning gun in everybody's picture tube into a deadly ray gun. But Kurt Jastrow is pretty good at thinking on his feet. He tells the aliens that Not by Bread Alone is a satiric program, and if they were to tune in the Sunday morning broadcast of Sitting Shiva for Jesus, they would find that it's astonishingly irreverent. So Kurt now faces the greatest challenge of his career. He has a mere 40 hours from Friday afternoon till Sunday morning to write and produce a secular humanist mashup of Not by Bread Alone and Brock Barton and his Rocket Rangers. His co-author is a believing Presbyterian, Connie Osborne, who wrote Sitting Shiva for Jesus. Needless to say, Connie is not thrilled at the prospect of turning her sincere religious drama into a farce. More blasphemy from the pen of James Morrow. Maybe you should give it a rest, Jim. More blasphemy, yes. After Brock Barton and his crew travel backwards in time to Lazarus's house, the recently resurrected Jesus supervises an absurdist Eucharist. The bread and the wine are derived from the breakfast food products made by the sponsors of Brock Barton and his Rocket Rangers. Drink this Ovaltine, for it is my blood. Eat these measures of Kellogg's Sugar Corn Pops, for they are my body. That looks like dog kibble. Well, this box goes all the way back to 1953. Of course the cereal has gotten stale. We should also mention that Kurt Jastrow writes for a pulp magazine called Andromeda, which is obviously based on Ixalag. Galaxy, edited in the 50s by the legendary Horace Gold. On the acknowledgments page of the Madonna and the Starship, you say, quote, by steering a path between the nihilistic and the numinous, those dubious worldviews Western civilization so relentlessly recommends to its citizens, even the grodiest pulp SF performs a salutary cultural function. What did you mean by that? By the numinous, I mean the notion that our world contains an invisible supernatural stratum, a kind of divine electromagnetic spectrum. We hear this argument all the time, though I've never found any evidence in its favor. And of course, the nihilistic is everywhere in our culture too. Postmodern irony, scorched earth Christianity, the Republican Party. One of the interesting things about the Madonna and the Starship is that your own worldview, your scientific humanism or humanistic atheism, or whatever you want to call it, your worldview seems to be embodied by two characters who are actually the villains, Woolawand and Volavant, the logical positivists from outer space, ready to kill 2 million innocent TV viewers. It turns out that the worldview of my invading invertebrates doesn't really map onto scientific humanism. It's simply nihilism with a bibliography. At the last minute, Kurt and Connie insert the aliens themselves into the program, that is, actors playing the aliens' alter egos. Brock Barton and his crew attempt to set them straight. You've not rejected God at all, he tells them. You've turned him into yourselves. How theistic of you. You've not dismantled the Almighty's throne. You've made it your favorite easy chair. How pious of you. If God is a bad idea, then playing God is an even worse idea. You invertebrates have embraced the very mythology you claim to despise. In other words, for all its naivete, classic pulp SF occupies its own planet, as it were, a place beyond the numinous and the nihilistic, where no one defers to the supernatural, and everybody says yes to scientific knowledge, and holds an unapologetic belief in progress. I couldn't have put it better myself, Jim. Given a choice between these thrilling wonder stories and these thrilling wonder stories, well, I'll take the pulp option. So how does it all play out? Do Kurt and Connie convince the Qualimosans that Not by Bread Alone is really a satiric show? Well, I'm not about to reveal that, am I? Guess not. Looks like we've come to the end of our chat. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Jim.